One of the great things about Star Trek over the years is that we have the whole gamut of emotions and stories that are told through the episodes. Whether you're talking the original series, Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Enterprise, so on and so forth. You've got serious episodes that deal with things like civil rights and racism and so on and so forth. And we saw a very heavy episode earlier on in season two here with Strange New Worlds. But this episode is purely comedic, and it felt like the perfect time to inject that freedom of emotion, that joy of being human and having jokes and emotional responses to things. It felt like a good time to inject that into this season, and it works on all levels. This is a absolutely a purely comedic episode meant to sort of act as a, story beat pause, so to speak. And I guarantee you, the next episode we're going to go back into something deep again. But for this one, it's all about two particular people, and we're going to be talking about that in this entire episode. So if you don't want things spoiled and you haven't watched the episode yet, go away, wait, watch your episode, come back, and then talk, because I don't do spoiler free. So you've had your warning. We're going to do a countdown, and then we're actually going to launch in, so you've got time to look away. Five, four, three, two, and you've been warned. Here we go. So there's two storylines taking place here. One of which is Dr. Chapel, who is dealing with wanting to apply to this fellowship on Vulcan while also struggling with the feelings that she has for Spock. And the other, which is the central focus of this episode, is Spock, who it deals with being temporarily converted to fully human and all of the emotions that come with that. And it's it's freaking amazing. Like, I was laughing in tears multiple times throughout this episode. They did a brilliant job of making this work. So essentially, they are in the middle of preparing to survey this ancient planet where there used to be this race of people called I can't remember, Carovians or something like that. And they were rumored to have these, amazing medical technologies and procedures and stuff, but it's just a ruined rock. There's that part of it. And the other part is, Chapel applying to this fellowship on Vulcan. And in the middle of all of this is the fact that Spock's fiance, T'Pring, he's been delaying all of these meetings with her mother for so long that it's no longer an option. So he has to. They're gonna do this ritual for the engagement to get the mother's approval, the T'Pring's mother's approval. And in the midst of all of this, Spock is assigned to do this shuttle drive-by of this ruined planet. At the last minute, Pike has Dr. Chapel go with him. When they arrive, there's a space-time vortex. They get too close to it. There's an accident, and Spock, blacks out, and he wakes up on this table with Doctor, what is it? Mbenga, I think is his name. I'm horrible with names, guys, for some of the characters. And Chapel and Pike, he's looking down at him on this table, and as he sits up, and he's like, "Why do I feel so weird?" and everything else. And then he's like, he's human, like his ears are gone, like he's a normal human now. And essentially, what we find out through contact with this other place, this through this interdimensional vortex, we find that this ancient race, one of them it realized that the shuttle that Spock had been piloting basically collided with that space-time vortex, which was it was a transportation tunnel for them. And they reached out and found him incredibly damaged, near death, and they repaired him. But the way they talk, it's so hilarious. It's like a customer service support line. But they were like, there were two mixed instructions, and we fixed him, and we put him back together following the one set of instructions, which means they literally saw the Vulcan human side, and then they saw Chapel, who was in the shuttle with him, and they matched the reparation to her. So they were like, she's human, he's half human and half something else. That doesn't match, so we're gonna make him match her. And so he's human now. And this whole episode is essentially him dealing with human emotions for the first time, and it's hilarious. Um, the way he has to deal with um, like bacon for the first time, and he's like just gorging himself on bacon, and he's like, "Why am I so nauseated?" But then like having conversations with the rest of the crew, like they're over drinks, and normally when they're telling jokes over drinks, he's just sitting there deadpan, and he's just like fascinating. And now he's like laughing hilariously and like slapping people on the back and just really overcharged with human emotion. And everyone's like, "Man, Spock is going crazy." In the middle of all of this, T'Pring's mother decides that they're not going to wait anymore. It needs to happen now because he's way too dedicated to Starfleet. So he needs to prove to her that he's worthy of her daughter, T'Pring. And so they decide to come to the ship in the middle of all of this and force this ritual on Spock in the middle of him having this crisis of identity because he can't control his emotions. And his mom comes as well. And he has to go through this whole charade of like putting on fake ears and going through the, trying to be Vulcan while he's human. And at the end of it, um, you know, he ends up confessing what has happened because he gets tired of dealing with her mother. And he's like, "Your whole thing is being shamed because you think a human couldn't have completed the rituals. And yet I just completed all of the rituals under your approval while I was fully human. So you are a bad person, essentially," is what he basically tells T'Pring's mom. But then T'Pring is upset because she feels betrayed because Spock didn't trust her and yet trusted all the people on the ship with his lie. And so they decide that they need to take some time apart. Now, that's important for what comes next because in the middle of all of this, Chapel is dealing with her emotions and she has to convince this otherworldly species to make things right and put Spock back together again. And she has to confess her feelings to convince them that this is going to happen. What's
Well,
up,
awesome.
everybody? Quick commercial break here to give it a shout out to our guild champions, who are the highest tier memberships here on YouTube: Ancient Entity, Assassin Gamer 94, Bubbleoni Rising, Crazy's Relative, Mujin, and Remedy. Thanks so much for the highest tier membership. And thanks to all of the members who support the channel, because you keep me doing this full time. You too can become a supporter if you're new here. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you never miss an update. Join as a member. There's 3 different tiers. We do lots of special stuff, private polls, private videos. You get a shout out if you're the highest tier membership, but you can also do one-off donations in the form of super chats on any live stream or premiere you see, and of course super thanks on any upload or YouTube short. Whatever you can contribute, it's great. Keeps me on the air full time, keeps the cats fed, keeps the homestead running. Anyway, back to the video, everybody. While also simultaneously dealing with the fact that the Vulcan uh, science committee the medical fellowship that she was seeking to approve doesn't apparently want her and doesn't think that she's worthy. So all of this happens. They put Spock back together again. She manages to convince the Curvovians or whatever they're called to repair Spock, um, but not before he has a chance to. The light just flickered, everybody. That was weird. Well, it's storming here, so it's probably a lightning blast. Um, Anyway, they do put Spock back together again, but T'Pring is upset. She wants to spend some time apart. Chapel has this interview with the Fellowship, and it doesn't go well. And they call her back. And they're like, "We've decided to not pursue you, but you can apply in the future." And she's like, "You know what? No, I'm out here doing cool stuff in space, meeting species that haven't been interacted with for hundreds of years. You can't handle me." And she literally cuts the call off. And it was just a brilliant moment of her realizing that she's way more than they will ever be, and she's doing really cool stuff here on the Enterprise. And then she ends up in Spock's quarters to sort of say, "How are you doing?" And everything else. And he's like, "We're taking time apart to Pring and and I have to admit, I'm having feelings for someone else." And he's obviously talking about her, and she decides to just kiss him. And he's like, "What does this mean?" And she's like, "I don't know. I don't care." And then it fades out as she like pushes him down on the bed. So you know that they're having a little bit of a dalliance here, which will absolutely come back to haunt Spock. And we know that at least in the traditional Spock that we've seen, he doesn't have those romantic entanglements with T'Pring. Like she's not really in the picture. So we know where this eventually ends up, unless this ends up being a completely different, you know, um, version of reality, kind of like the Kelvin timeline. So, just a great comedic episode, and I feel like is it Ethan Peck? I think is his name, which I did not realize until I think 2 days ago. I saw on Twitter this is Gregory Peck's grandson, and I never put that together. his performance in this episode, I mean, everybody's performance was really, really good. Um, but I think him in particular, he did a great job of going from the cold logical Spock to, oh my God, I'm overwhelmed with emotions and bacon is so good and do I smell bad? Like, like all of his emotions that he's been suppressing are now fully realized and he's just freaking out and like overreacting to everything. And it was really well done. So like I said, I laughed to the point I cried half a dozen times in this episode. So another 10 out of 10 for me. I thought it was absolutely great. Again, great to have a moment of levity because the last couple few episodes have been really heavy in terms of themes. So this one was a nice break from that, and I'm totally ready for getting back into the heavy stuff when we get into the next episode. So love to hear your thoughts. Drop them down below. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you never miss an update. Until next time, everyone, stay safe. Happy viewing.